2 balls and a strike to count on Taylor. Reyes fires, swing and a drive, deep left field. It's his way back. Welcome on, Chris Taylor.
What's up, everyone? Welcome into DodgerHeads, presented by DodgerBlue.com. My name is Jeff Spiegel, joined as always by Matt Moreno. Matt, we got a Max Muncy update, a couple interesting nuggets here. He responds to the rumors about Freddie Freeman, which is important because he plays the same position Max Muncy is used to playing. But let's start with a health update because I think as far as what is actually in front of us and the guys on the team, this is the most interesting. The good news is he says he's progressing well. He was expected to be ready for opening day, and so obviously with the lockout pushing that back, he has no concerns, it doesn't sound like, about being ready. What was fascinating was the lockout has been both good news and bad news for Muncie. Good news because he gets extra time to recover. Again, there's no real baseball games being played. The bad news, he can't actually work with Dodger trainers, Dodger medical staff, that kind of a thing. So what did you make of Muncie's comments as far as his health in this interview with David Vassay on Dodger Talk?
Yeah, there were a few things for me. One, as much as Muncie expressed optimism that he was going to be ready for the original opening day, which is March 31st, which is not happening now, he did sort of caution that he has to see how his elbow responds once he's taking live swings in real games. So to me, that is a little concerning, and it's still, we talked about it. With Tommy John, with UCL injuries, 9 times out of 10 it leads to Tommy John surgery.
Yeah.
Now, Muncie said he didn't need that because of how the ligaments sort of laid and set after they were torn, which is not anything I've ever really heard. I'm not doubting him. I just found that interesting because I've never heard something like that.
Yeah.
Of course, with Tommy John, when we're dealing with that type of injury, it's pretty much with a pitcher. And so, of course, it just is common sense that they would need surgery. So I'm a little concerned about that. But in terms of at least his progression, at least trying to play, it is helpful that opening day obviously has been pushed back. I think, the trainer stuff, that's a point that Caleb Ferguson brought up as well on his recent interview with David Vassay. And the way it sort of seems like it's working is these rehabbing players are working with, a set team or a specific trainer, whatever the case may be. And that person then is in communication with the Dodgers and relaying, this is where we're at, and kind of being a middleman. But yeah, Muncie brings up a great point. And I know when the lockout was first going to be starting, there was some thought that injured players would still be able to communicate with training staffs, at least until they were medically cleared. I thought that was good. But as we've seen repeatedly throughout the lockout, there is very little disregard for the overall health of the sport. And so that just kind of fell into that category.
Yeah, it's interesting, Muncie explaining the differences. I mean, obviously, Corey Seager, not a pitcher. He had to have Tommy John surgery. And I think most people in their minds were like, well, Corey Seager plays shortstop. There's a lot more throwing stress that goes on to his elbow compared to Muncie, who plays first base. And yet, that leads perfectly into the second half of this conversation, which is Muncie was asked about the possibility of Freddie Freeman joining the Dodgers. Of course, there are rumors everywhere. There's no news because we're in the middle of a lockout. But obviously, if Freeman came, he would become the team's primary first baseman. There would be some lockout stuff in there, some designated hitter stuff in there as well. But here's what Muncie had to say. I thought his quote was, on one hand, kind of what you would expect, but also speaks to Muncie as a person. He said, quote, "I think it's awesome. Imagine how dangerous we would be if we get him in that lineup. It makes me really excited. Maybe not as much first base, but that's okay. I think I've told you several times, I enjoy playing second base more. If we get the DH, obviously that's going to be a rotating position. We're not going to have one set DH because that's a way we can utilize it to get people off their feet, get them rest days without taking them out of the lineup. I don't think we'll have a set DH, so that just means we'll be rotating all around the field. That to me is what's really fun, so I'm excited about it." I'll start what stands out to me the most. I did not realize Muncie enjoys playing second base more than first base. Is that news to you?
Yeah, definitely. That's not something I knew he felt so strongly about. I thought whenever he played second base, it was more that he could and just a matter of circumstance because maybe the Dodgers had to, get Matt Beatty some at-bats during the start at first base, whatever the case may be. So that was interesting, and I think it's even better news now if you're the Dodgers. I assumed Muncie was going to be open to possibly signing Freddie Freeman anyway. But now, if it works out that he's going to a position that he would rather play, then of course, the Dodgers there's no reason they shouldn't pursue Freeman now.
Yeah. Yeah. I always wonder, what does Gavin Lux think when like he gets wind of this interview? It's like, yeah, I'd love Freddie Freeman. Like, I'm happy to move over to second base. Gavin Lux is sitting over there like, excuse me. Like, I think I'm penciling myself into the second base spot this year. Like, I mean, obviously Muncie, it's not like you can be politically correct to make everybody happy. I think he answered the question honestly, and he answered the question like I'm sure Gavin Lux completely understands it if you have a chance to get Freddie Freeman. But I just laugh about the dynamics of that. I mean, were you surprised at all to hear Muncie say the team first thing? I don't think I've ever seen anything about Muncie that would lead me to believe that he would be like sort of pissy about another guy coming in and playing first.
Yeah, not really. I mean, that's just the culture the Dodgers have really established, over the past handful of years. And I know, Dave Roberts gets a lot of criticism, but I think that's some credit he deserves. I think you also have strong clubhouse leaders, the Justin Turners, the Clayton Kershaw, Kenley Jansen. Obviously, we need to see how free agency unfolds before knowing how many of those guys will be back. Yeah. But Muncie falls into that category as well. And I think, the team is disappointed. I'm sure they feel like a lot of fans do that they you don't want to say should have won the World Series, but were, a favorite and fell short of their goal. And some of that was obviously injuries, which you don't necessarily have full control over. And so I think there's there's the commitment to kind of doing what's best for the team so that you can kind of, get back to the World Series is even stronger than maybe it normally would be.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. It is worth noting that on Monday, John Heyman did report that the Tampa Bay Rays had reached out to Freddie Freeman, that the Yankees had expressed some interest. The Dodgers were on that list as well. And so we'll have to see how the Freddie Freeman piece plays out. But the good news here, Max Muncy completely on board and in favor of it. And maybe the better news for the 2022 Dodgers is that Muncy is expected to be ready for opening day. Said he would have been ready for original opening day, so a couple extra weeks won't hurt him there. That's Matt Moreno. My name's Jeff Spiegel. As always, please subscribe, ring the notification bell, follow us on social media at DodgerBlue1958. Check out DodgerBlue.com for all the latest.